What if the life you're living right now is only surviving because you keep agreeing to it? Not because you're trapped, not because destiny chose this for you, but because every day, in invisible ways, you keep voting for the same reality. And the strangest part? Most people never realize they're doing it. They think change happens when money arrives, when the right person appears, when motivation finally kicks in. But that's not how transformation works. Real change begins the moment your inner world stops negotiating with the version of you that's keeping you small. And tonight, I want to tell you a story about that. A few years ago, there was a period of my life where everything looked normal on the outside. I was functioning, replying to messages, smiling in conversations, posting updates, doing what I was supposed to do. But internally, it felt like I was disappearing. Every morning felt emotionally identical to the one before it. The same thoughts, the same fears, the same quiet exhaustion. It was like my life had become automated. And one night, I remember sitting alone in complete silence, asking myself a question that genuinely scared me. What if nothing changes? Not next month, not next year. What if this becomes my entire life? That question hit me harder than failure ever did. Because deep down, I knew something terrifying. I wasn't waiting for life to change. I was waiting for permission. Permission to become someone different. Permission to outgrow old patterns. Permission to stop identifying with the version of myself built from fear. And maybe that's where you are too. Because there comes a point where your soul gets tired of rehearsing the same emotional experience. And when that moment comes, life starts sending signals. Not loud ones, quiet ones. A conversation that lingers in your mind longer than it should. A sudden urge to leave environments that once felt comfortable. A strange feeling that certain people no longer fit your future. An unexplained pull towards something you can't fully explain yet. Most people ignore these moments because they don't look dramatic. But those moments matter. Because before your outer life changes, your internal relationship with reality begins shifting first. And this is where everything becomes interesting. Have you ever noticed how two people can stand in the exact same situation, and one sees possibility while the other only sees limitation? One person experiences an ending and calls it destruction. Another experiences the same ending and calls it freedom. Same event, different internal state, different outcome. That's because your life is not shaped only by circumstances. It's shaped by interpretation. The identity you repeat internally becomes the filter through which reality responds to you. If deep down you see yourself as abandoned, you will unconsciously notice rejection everywhere. If you see yourself as incapable, opportunities will feel threatening instead of exciting. If you believe life never works out for you, your nervous system will keep pulling you toward familiar disappointment, because certainty feels safer than possibility. This is why so many people stay emotionally stuck even when they desperately want change. Their mind wants a new life, but their identity is still loyal to the old one. And identity is powerful, because once the mind decides this is who I am, it begins defending that version of reality automatically. That's why growth often feels uncomfortable at first. You're not just learning new habits, you're grieving an old self, and nobody talks enough about that part. People romanticize transformation, but transformation can feel lonely. There will be moments where you no longer relate to your old coping mechanisms, but you also haven't fully become the new version of yourself yet. That in-between stage feels confusing. You may lose interest in things that once distracted you. You may feel disconnected from people you used to chase approval from. You may suddenly crave solitude without understanding why. Don't panic there. That space is sacred, because life is trying to separate you from the identity that can no longer carry your future. And here's where most people accidentally sabotage themselves. They keep checking the outside world for evidence before fully committing internally. They say, I'll believe in myself when something finally works. I'll relax when my life improves. I'll feel worthy once people recognize me. But external proof is always delayed. Reality often shifts quietly before it becomes visible. A seed underground looks like nothing, right before it breaks open. And sometimes your life is changing in ways your eyes can't measure yet. That's why emotional consistency matters more than temporary motivation. Anyone can feel powerful for one day. Anyone can feel motivated after watching a video, reading a quote, or having one good morning where everything suddenly feels possible. But the real question is this: can you still hold belief when nothing around you is validating it yet? Can you continue becoming someone new while your current reality still looks exactly the same? Can you trust your own transformation before the evidence arrives? Because that is the real shift. Most people quit in the invisible stage. The stage where nothing seems to be happening externally. The stage where you're doing the inner work quietly, but your life hasn't caught up yet. And that stage can feel unbearable because the human mind is addicted to immediate proof. You start wondering if you're delusional, if you're wasting your time, if maybe you should just go back to being the old version of yourself, because at least that identity felt familiar. But what most people don't realize is this. The moment your identity starts changing internally, reality often becomes unstable for a while. Old patterns begin breaking apart. Old relationships stop feeling aligned. Certain conversations start draining you instead of exciting you. You become more sensitive to environments that once felt normal. And at first that feels like something is wrong, but it's not wrong. It's evidence that your nervous system is no longer comfortable living in emotional survival mode, because eventually something strange begins happening. The opportunities you once chased desperately start appearing naturally. The people you tried so hard to impress suddenly begin noticing you without effort. Conversations become deeper. Your intuition becomes louder. Your reactions become calmer. You stop needing to explain yourself to everyone. And maybe the biggest shift of all, you stop trying to earn your worth from people who were never qualified to define it in the first place. That changes everything. Because when a person truly starts changing internally, they stop moving with emotional desperation. And desperation has a frequency people can feel immediately. Think about it. You can feel when someone is trying too hard to be liked. You can feel when someone secretly doesn't believe in themselves. You can feel when someone is emotionally chasing validation while pretending not to care. Energy always reveals what words try to hide. But when someone begins choosing themselves genuinely, their presence changes. Not louder, not arrogant, just grounded. They stop entering rooms asking, "Do I belong here?" and start entering life asking, "Does this align with who I'm becoming?" That is a completely different energy. And strangely enough, life begins responding differently to that version of you, because the world often mirrors the relationship you have with yourself. When you constantly abandon yourself emotionally, you attract situations that reinforce abandonment. When you constantly betray your own boundaries, you attract people who benefit from your lack of boundaries. When you secretly believe you are hard to love, you unconsciously settle for connections that keep proving that belief right. But the opposite is true too. The moment you start respecting your peace, life reorganizes around that decision. The moment you stop begging for what aligns naturally, things begin flowing differently. The moment you stop treating yourself like an option, reality starts reflecting your value back to you in unexpected ways. And no, this doesn't mean life suddenly becomes painless. There will still be uncertainty, still moments of doubt, still nights where old fears revisit your mind, still mornings where you question whether you're really changing at all. But now, you no longer build your identity around temporary emotions. That's the difference. Before, one bad moment could convince you that your entire life was falling apart. Now, you understand that emotions are weather. They pass, they move, they shift. And who you are is deeper than one anxious thought or one difficult day. That realization alone can redirect an entire life, because most people aren't destroyed by circumstances. They're destroyed by the meaning they attach to those circumstances. And when your perspective changes, your reality slowly follows. You begin noticing things you once overlooked. Peace becomes more attractive than chaos. Consistency becomes more attractive than intensity. Authenticity becomes more attractive than approval. And suddenly the things you once thought would save you don't even feel necessary anymore. The attention, the validation, the constant proving, the exhausting need to arrive somewhere before allowing yourself to feel worthy. You outgrow it, not because you became perfect, but because you finally stopped measuring your value through temporary external conditions. And honestly, most people will never understand this shift until they experience it themselves. Because from the outside, your life may look almost the same. You may still wake up in the same room, talk to the same people, go through the same routines. But internally, everything is different. You think differently. You protect your energy differently. You recover from pain differently. You love differently. You move differently. Even your silence becomes different. You stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You stop chasing closure from people who could never give it. You stop forcing connections that only survive when you abandon yourself inside them. And slowly, you become lighter. Not because life suddenly became easy, but because you stopped carrying emotional weight that was never yours to hold. That's the shift people can't always see immediately, because real transformation is often invisible before it becomes obvious. A person can be changing deeply while their outer life still looks unfinished. And this is where many people return to old patterns, not because they truly want their old life back, but because uncertainty makes the familiar feel safer. The old version of you may have been unhappy, but at least it was predictable, and the mind often mistakes predictability for safety. That's why growth feels emotionally disorienting at first. You are no longer fully connected to your past, but you haven't fully arrived in your future either. You're standing between identities, between survival and alignment, between who you had to become and who you truly are underneath all the conditioning. And if you've made it this far, pause for a second and type this in the comments. I'm done hiding who I'm becoming. Not for me, for yourself. Because sometimes healing begins the moment you stop apologizing for your growth. And ask yourself honestly, what's one version of yourself you know you've outgrown, but still return to when life gets hard? Because the answers we avoid the most often reveal the exact place where healing still needs to happen. And maybe lately you've felt disconnected, restless, emotionally caught between who you used to be and who you're becoming. Maybe certain conversations no longer resonate with you. Maybe being alone feels more peaceful than forcing yourself to fit in. Maybe your intuition keeps telling you your life is changing, even if you can't explain how yet. That feeling matters, because before a new chapter begins, there's usually a period where your old identity quietly starts collapsing. And yes, that stage can feel lonely. People around you may not understand your growth because they only recognize the version of you they became comfortable with, the overgiving version, the people-pleasing version, the emotionally exhausted version. And when you start changing, some people may call you distant, cold, or selfish. But protecting your peace is not selfish. Outgrowing suffering is not selfish. Refusing to keep shrinking yourself for acceptance is not selfish. It's self-respect. And eventually you realize something powerful. Healing is not becoming someone completely different. It's becoming who you were before fear convinced you to betray yourself. That realization changes everything. You stop begging life to choose you. You stop measuring your worth through attention. You stop needing constant reassurance that you matter. Because for the first time, your sense of self comes from within instead of temporary external validation. And little by little, your reality starts responding to your new state of being. You attract healthier experiences, clearer opportunities, more peaceful connections, and most importantly, you stop feeling at war with yourself every day. And one day, something incredible happens. You wake up inside a life that once felt impossible, and strangely, it feels natural. Not because you got lucky, not because life suddenly became perfect, but because your identity finally aligned with what your soul had been trying to move toward all along. So if this message found you during a strange season of life, remember this: you do not need every answer right now. You do not need to control every outcome, and you do not need permission to become someone new. You only need the courage to stop repeating the version of yourself that no longer feels true. Because once your inner world changes sincerely, your outer world cannot remain the same forever.